Good morning, everyone. Good morning to our scholars on our last and final day. And this panel is usually our favorite. Friday is our favorite because we get to go out into the community. But since it'll be hopefully our last year virtually, we decided to bring the community to you all virtually. And so we're welcoming all of you this morning. We want to remind you to please make sure you fill out all of your assessments so that we'll be able to use those for future cohorts. And then also we'll have Cal introduce our theme for the day, because I can't pull it up right now, Cal, but if you could introduce our theme for the day, and then we'll get started with our panelists.
Sure. So hello, everyone. So happy to be virtually here with you. Hopefully next year we can have it in person, and you all are invited to come to the community gathering happening tonight at 6 p.m. at Lost Eden Gallery. So please make your way if you have an opportunity to do that. It would be really nice to at least give our gifts to you, your swag, and also, just kind of see you in person. So following up from yesterday, which we had a great faculty panel, and then we also had Dr. Nia Aitaoto, who really engaged in showing community engaged research. She's not only hilarious, but she does so much work in the community, and she does phenomenal research to meet the community's needs. So right now we have a great panel for you all. But today's theme, I'm not Samoan, so I'm not going to attempt to say it in Samoan, but basically the Olelo Noeau, the proverb of the day is the path to leadership is through service. And so really thinking through the ways in which, how to use your gifts, how to use your talents, how do you use your academic journeys to be in service for the community. And we have some great community leaders here for you all that's going to speak to the wonderful things that they're doing that are ongoing that you can also get involved with. So we have a great panel for you all. I'm going to pass it back to Moana.
Thank you, Kehao. So this morning, we'll have each one of the panelists introduce themselves. All of you have access to Canvas, so you can see their specific bios. And then we will jump right into the questions for the panelists. This morning, we have Jenny Sika, who is a board member of the Salt Lake City School Board. Saolo Betham, she is at the University Neighborhood Partners, as you can see her background. She's been there for a few years. And we have Melesina Folau, who is at PHA, as well as runs a 501c for Micronesian women. And so we'll start off with Jenny. Just introduce your name, where you're from, Jenny, and also talk a little bit about your own community work, along with, we know you're on the board, but we know you also run a young women's rugby team.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Thanks for having me. Can you guys hear me? Okay, great. Sorry, I'm on the road. This is not ideal, but I'm heading out to a job, so I hope I could be very engaged while driving. It's not good, kids. Don't do this. But yes, so my name's Jenny Sika. I have I just recently got elected to the board, Salt Lake City School District this year. January 5th was the day I started. I also, like Moana had prefaced, that I also run a rugby team here in the Glendale area. That's been running since actually 2010. 2010 was when we first started that team, but it was a team of women, and after we had one season, the majority of those women went out to further, educate themselves and got married, did great things. So we opted to just shut it down. And then eventually this year, just a couple of years ago, the opportunity presented itself for us to start it back up again. And now we're running a high school team and also a middle school team in the area. We have kids coming all over the place, as far as Saratoga Springs, Tooele, and as far north as Ogden, participating in this program. My education experience, Juana? My education experience is a fun one. I was that student who wasn't a good student at all. I used to do really good in school, but because of the flexibility that I had, I did really horrible. And eventually I was unable to walk. I was supposed to be class of 98 at East High School. I didn't make the walking line. I didn't walk for my graduation. So I had to go to Horizonte and make up that diploma, and I did that. And eventually, fast forward 2012, I was inspired. I had been working for a company for over 10 years, and I had been moving up the ladder, but I could only move up so far, and they had inspired me and kind of pushed me to go back to school. I went back to school in 2012, started at LDS Business College in accounting, graduated from LDS BC, and transferred over to the University of Utah, and started this amazing journey back to where I knew that I've always should have been. It took me a while to get there, but I got there. And then in 2020, I graduated with my bachelor's degree in business administration. Obviously, I went from accounting to business admin, but I did it. I was also impressed and inspired by other people for me to run for this school board. I didn't know what it entailed, but I live across the street from Alama Uluave, who was part of the school district when I was in high school, and that was a huge deal for me. Like the opportunities that his children received, the opportunities that he was able to give back to the community, and that was a huge thing for me. I have kids. I have 8 kids, and 5 of those kids will be in the school district for a really long time. My youngest is 5 years old, and so no better way than to participate and engage ourselves civilly through this school district by doing what I could, not only for my kids, but for the kids in my neighborhood. Yeah, but that's me. I don't know what else is there anything else you would like for me to share, Moana?
No, that's a perfect introduction, Jenny.
Okay, thank you.
And then we'll give it time to Saolo to introduce yourself.
Everyone, how do you even follow that? Hi, Jenny. My name is Saolo Betham. I am Samoan. My parents are Ron and Lisa Beetham. I was born in Hawaii. I was raised in Laie and then partly in Long Beach, California. But Utah's home now. And I work for University Neighborhood Partners. I've been with the University of Utah for about 6 years, and I love it. At UMP, what we do in our department is build partnerships between West Side communities and the university. And it's been amazing work to be a part of. I work with community leaders and support them in the goals that they have for their neighborhoods and ways that they want to support individuals in their communities. And so I manage a partnership called West Side Leadership Institute, and it's a leadership training class that's offered through the university and extended to community leaders. And so it's a really nice mix of university students. So you can possibly take that class as university students along with community leaders on the West Side. So it's one of the partnerships that UMP has managed for the longest amount of time. So we have over 600 graduates that make up the WLI network and are still doing amazing work. Today, I am a graduate of the WLI, which is how I found UNP. And Melesina has as well, and that's how we know each other. But I worked with other community leaders to create a Pacific Islander softball team for young girls in elementary and middle school. And it was so much fun. And it gave me a lot of good leadership experience that I still use in the community work that I do today. Education-wise, I did my undergrad at BYU, which is how I know Moana. And I did my master's at the University of Utah. And this fall, I will be starting a PhD program in the ECS department with Dr. Vaughn. And so be careful, you students, because you may be stuck with these group of people and you may be stuck in school for a very long time. So prepare yourself for that. Yeah, that's me, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Saolo. Melesina?
Sorry, I don't even know how to unmute myself, so apology for that. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Saolo. I'm so privileged to be with you too today and with the rest of the panel at University of Utah. I talk too much, so I've asked Kaimana to show a slide as I speak, so I stay in focus on the community service that I'm involved with currently. And so let's see, can I share that? Okay. Can everybody see my slide? All right, so Kasalelia Manko, Teme Melesina Folau, Ngaya Sang Pingila Ponpe, and Micronesian Me Wasegis Meraba Pacific Ocean. And it is a privilege to be here with all of you. I carry this life's luggage. Keep in mind, it's not a baggage, it's a luggage. And it's part of my diaspora introduction. I am Pingila Peace, which is part of the archipelago of Pohnpei. And that's both my parents. I have their pictures at the bottom. That's my dad and that's my mom. If you see my mom, she has an Afro hair because she is of her maternal lineage is of Papua New Guinea ancestry. So we have that Afro. I just blow dry my hair. That's why it looks like this. But anyhow, my dad is proud to be Pohnpeian, and that's where we are. I did some of my growing up in Saipan, which is part of the Mariana Islands, just because the trust territory of the Pacific Islands headquarters used to be there at one point until all the little Micronesian islands divided into the respective groups that they are in right now. I'm married to a Tongan, so that's why you see Malolele. My kids, they think they're pure Tongans and they're not. I'm sure you guys are aware of that. But they're very proud of their Tongan culture and they're learning of the Pohnpeian culture, and it is my fault. I have my pictures of Pohnpei, Nanmatol, Spanish wall from the Spanish era, the Japanese ammunition right in front of you guys, which is something we used to play around in. Can you imagine? Now it's like a restricted area. But that's my childhood experiences. As far as community service, and I love that term service because, you know, you can actually be working and doing service for your community. And one of the things I love about my community is I'm able to work at Pacific Heritage Academy. It's a K-8 charter public school founded by 3 Polynesian Pacific Island women, mothers. In 2012, it was a process, took them 4 years, but actually in 2012, it became a reality, and Pacific Heritage was constructed right here in my neighborhood of Rose Park, which is something that I've been PTA president and SCC, you know, for so many years, and I've always wanted that. Not that I have anything against the public system or the Common Core or anything, because I love that. It's just I thought the Pacific Island heritage and knowledge and navigation and the love for Earth, and like the Hawaiians call it Malama Monua, you know, all those wisdom of the Pacific Islands to be integrated into Common Core. And so that's why I love the Pacific Heritage Academy. And I'm proud to say I worked there since the day it started. And I'm still there. We're going on to the 10th year. And a couple of years ago, a friend of mine challenged me because we've always had lunch or dinner and talk about organizing the diverse Micronesian group and include Guam and the Mariana Islands and Palau and all of these so-called different island nations into one group. We were able to be successful only about 5 of the groups, but we're still work in progress. But we were able to. I attended WLI, West Side Leadership Institute, and it gave me some knowledge to write a grant. So I did, and we got it. And my friend Margarita Satini was able to help me write the 501c. And that's how we got organized about 2 years ago. And so that's what we are. We're an organization for girls and women, networking basically. And we're still in the networking process because, we're here to promote and educate and embrace our community to take on the Utah Pacific Island community as a larger community and then Utah as a larger. And we're still in progress. We've done a lot, I think, within the last year or so, but we're still learning as we go along. And then another thing that I'm currently involved in is the Utah Micronesian Coalition, which is another 501c. Also co-founded that with Cassidy Matthews. He's really busy at this time because he's also the president and chairman of the United Marshallese Association, which is really, I've kept him busy on that. But that's the community organizations that I've been in. I love Pacific Heritage Academy. It keeps me focused. And our saying is looking forward. We honor the past to better see our future. And if you're interested in knowing more of that, go to phlearning.org and it'll give you more knowledge on that one. And then as far as United Micronesian Women, these are some of the images and stuff that we've actually been involved with. I found out that the Micronesian chain from the Marshall Islands all the way to Palau celebrate International Women's Day as part of the International Women's Day worldwide. And so we took that commonality and ran with it. And that's how we've been able to connect all the diverse, because we're not a monolithic group, we never had been. But we've always been a Micronesian group until 1960s when everything started becoming individualized. But we've been involved. We've gathered the girls and the older generation and the younger generation and combined them. And even though it's just one day out of March of the year, but we really have fun. We've decorated, this year we had a drive-through where all the Micronesian women decorated their cars with fish, as you can see, hanging fish and all that, and to celebrate our culture and stuff. We were honored last year from the United Micronesian Women as the Emerging Community of the Year Award from the OAC of Utah, which is a shocker for us, but we were happy to, accept and very humbled by that. And as far as community service, we find out that we're really not nothing, but we cannot function well without our other community partners. And they're UPSEC, which is founded by Margarita Satini, which stands for Utah Pacific Island Coalition Engagement, Civic Engagement Coalition, and also UPIC, which is the Utah Pacific Island Health Community, Utah Pacific Island Health Coalition, and also OCA. I've helped out with food to distribute to our community. So a lot of partnerships with flu shots and even COVID, even though we say it's a Micronesian sponsored, all of these Pacific Island community organizations have helped us make those possibilities realities. One thing that we've done in the past years, as far as my United Micronesian Women, we were able to get a grant, apply for it and got it with a lot of the indigenous groups here in the Valley. And we call it the Project to Emergency Fund, which actually assisted a lot of our families, I know we're so girls and women based, but all of our applicants are women and girls, but as you know, they're part of a home. And so we were able to give some relief on rent, mortgage, utilities, medical bills, and technology, meaning computers for kids that don't have access to either the internet or a device to actually go to school with the new social distant learning. And then, like I mentioned, the Udon Micronesian Coalition, we're still working on that. And our main purpose is to promote and support the health, education, social, civic engagement, economic, and cultural welfare of Pacific Island communities. And we're just part of that bigger community as a Pacific community. And I think, can everyone see me okay? And I like to end with, we are Mighty Voyagers. The image that you see is a picture or a painting by a young Pohnpeian girl named Lizette Yamase. And it's called The Navigator. She did it in honor of Papa Ma, which is one of the instrumental figures in Nainoa Thompson's voyaging canoe, the Okulea. And so this is also Pacific Heritage saying we are Mighty Voyagers. And so as navigators, we navigate as we sometimes feel alone, but actually there's elements everywhere that are to direct us. We just need to learn it and follow those elements. So thank you so much for having me. As far as education, I'm still learning. So I'm always wanting to learn and ever so learning. I did get my bachelor's, however, from Utah. What am I trying to say? At Brigham Young University, Hawaii to start it with, and then I attended University of Utah and also Salt Lake community. So I appreciate the opportunity to be with all of you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melesina. She's gonna. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. I think I just wanted to ask like a couple of questions before we move to a Q&A with the students. One of my questions relates to our theme, which is about service and a life that is fulfilled. All of you I know have day jobs as well and then do service on the side. So my question is, why or how does serving your own Pacific community, I know you have jobs inside, but also the work that you do is heavily involved with Pacific Islanders still. Why focus on that and still have the community component in all the work that you do? What is the reasoning behind that? Saolo, do you have? I'll start with you. Since you are working for an actual community-based organization.
Yeah, and as I think about the question, the community work that I've done in my career actually has given me professional opportunities to do this as a day job, right? To have a career in community or just in the university. It all started with community work. And I think for selfish reasons, right? You have a lot more leadership experience when you serve your own community. And if I think about how I like run a meeting or how I made a flyer or like all of these little things that you don't notice at first that you're learning how to do at a young age, right? When you serve people around you and you get into professional spaces where like those types of skills are wanted and needed. And it's like, oh, I know how to do that. Like, I know how to put an agenda together. I've been doing this since I was young. And that's because, we're raised in communities where you're given those leadership opportunities. And so I don't think, the older I get, I think I find ways where those two worlds come together more than you would expect. And I think it's because of those opportunities to serve and learn and kind of grow in safe spaces where you have leaders around you and people who mentor you and nurture you in the community. I think those are the reasons why I'm able to grow professionally, because those worlds kind of come together. And the work that I do at UMP, I think, is unique. And I want to see more spaces like this where young people can step into leadership spaces and really take ownership of how to do these things, because they're not hard. And I love that Melesina mentioned Margarita Satini so much, because she's one of those leaders that like pushes you. She pushed Melesina to create a nonprofit and helped her write her bylaws. So there are those opportunities when you serve that, you know, you have mentors like that push you and help you through that process, and you gain confidence in the community, so that when you step into professional spaces, you're not intimidated because you know how to do this stuff. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but those were kind of my initial thoughts when you talked about having like community work on the side and kind of your full-time job, is finding ways where those complement each other or even blend together.
Asina, I think Jenny's having some technical difficulties and will be returning shortly.
Thank you. And Saolo, thank you so much for that. Yeah, as far as community service, my family has always been involved in community service, you know, traveling wherever, being liaison officers at, you know, but I've never really considered myself, actually, I decided when I was in a younger age that I'll never be in the public service. You know, it's just something I had a not bad experience, but I saw both sides of the coin and I never want to be involved in. And that was what I decided in my 20s, like I'll never be involved in service, never. And it's funny because, you know, a 20-year-old and a 40-year-old are two different spaces and time. That when I start being involved in my own kids' schooling, or, you know, primary and then high school, and then they went off to college, I realized how important service is. And so that's how I started to be PTA, you know, first room mom and then PTA president and then SEC and whatever else I've done. I realized that being professional, the service part of my public life, so call it, it actually helps my professional life, like, you know, Saolo has mentioned. And there's, especially in a diverse community, because I'm always not shy. I'm not too shy. Once I get to know you, I, you know, talk much. But it just gives you a different perspective, that you realize that your perspective is just one angle out of 360 degrees. And it gives you an idea of, you know, how to approach a group when you're in a professional manner or a professional space. And not only gives you the confidence, but it gives you the leeway to say, hey, you know, it's okay to feel how you're feeling, because I felt like that, even though you have a different space than I do. But, you know, all you need to do is step into it. And so I think it's because of my public service, I'm able to serve my school community better, or whatever else other jobs I've held better because of my community service. And I never really wanted to be a leader, so-called a leader, because since I was 20s, I've never wanted to be a leader. It's just one thing in my mind. But I'm really service oriented, because that's what my grandparents did, that's what my parents did, that's what my siblings did. And then I realized that there's a connection there. And it's really powerful for those that do the service on the side and think, you know what, I'm not a leader, but that's exactly what you are when you're serving others. And when you're learning these things, whether it be collaboration or just the responsibilities that comes with service. And so that's been my experience, that both are meshed together, and it's such a powerful combination. And so that's I've never had the will or the conviction or the desire to be a leader, because I don't want my face to be anywhere else but in my own community. But then when Margarita passed away, I'm sorry, guys. Some of our conversations and that my sister also have mentioned, and she passed away too in December. And that really hit me. Like, you know what? I'm just being a child by, wanting to not to say, my service, even if it's just what it is. I want to, be part of the community. And that's all it is. Don't let leadership role intimidate you to a point that it becomes overwhelming. Just do your little part, no matter how little it is. And my apologies. Every time I mention Margarita, my sister, I get emotional because both of them passed away last year. But it's been an emotional ride last year. And I realized, you know what? I am the older, so-called older generation, and these young girls in my Micronesian community, I mean, as funny as it is, whether it be a weaving little thing, they go, Auntie, I learned that from you. And I'm like, you did such a great job now. And it's just showing them how it is done so they can run with it. They'll never have that opportunity if you don't, take the time to show it. And so that's why I'm in the space and time I am. And I'm so privileged to have you guys invite me to talk to our young generations out there. So thank you.
Thank you, Melesina and Saolo. Thank you. You all brought up some really important and great points. And Melesina, please don't apologize for, having emotion. I think, I would hope that our spaces will nurture you so that you feel like you can share and express yourself. We have some great leaders that have provided a lot of shade for us and sustenance for us. Those that came before us, the mentors that come before us. And, it's like our kuleana, as you all were saying, to do what you can so that other people can be inspired. But I wanted to shift and just ask your advice for our scholars or for people who are just starting out, right? Like they just want to begin. So do you all have words of advice for scholars who are just starting to be engaged in community? What would your words of advice be? And we'll start with Saolo.
Are you sure you want to start with me? I'm kidding.
You're going to be my future advisee, so you got to get used to it, Saolo.
Oh gosh, I have so much advice to give. Where do I start? I think for me, just starting out, similar to what Melesina said, I never considered myself a leader. I never wanted to be a leader in the front, and I thought for a long time that that's the only type of leader there is, the person at the front in charge, making all the decisions. And I realized through some experience that that's actually not what leadership is. And I love the proverb, the theme for today, Oleala i le tule, or Oleala i le pule, le tautua. And so I learned through a lot of community work that it doesn't always have to be the only type of leadership, being up there at the front. There's lots of other things and ways that you can lead. And so my first piece of advice would just be yourself and live your truth and be true to who you are, the families that you come from, that you represent, the communities that raised you, that you represent, and don't try to be anything different. And find your own, your own style of leadership that's true to who you are. Because it doesn't have to be up in the front. Maybe it's, behind the scenes. Maybe it's using your talents in other ways where you don't have to be the loudest leader, right? And through my experience, I think I learned that I'm very shy and I don't like to speak publicly, which is why this is probably ideal, right? Because I can't see any of the students. And so I'm like not afraid to speak, but if we had a big group in a room, I probably would be. So I discovered really quickly that that's not my strength. My strength lies maybe more in the organizing piece and helping to coordinate people and things and places and to and that's more my strength, right? And so when opportunities come to do community work, to engage, I think I revert back to my strengths and ground myself in that. So I think be yourself, find your own style of leadership where you fit, and do it, jump into it. I think it's easy to get intimidated and hesitate, especially as a young person. Like, oh no, let the older people who do this all the time, let them do it. But don't be afraid. I think young people have really good, fresh ideas, and they have a very different view of the world that we need to hear more often. And so I would love to see more young people step into leadership spaces. So when I saw that Jen was running for school board, I was like, yes, that's exactly who we need. Younger voices and and fearless leaders who aren't afraid to step into those spaces and represent the communities they live. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. Jen, would you like to provide any words of advice for our scholars who might just be starting out to engage with community?
Yeah, sure. I think, like for me, I didn't intend to get into community. I think community just came to me, and I feel like community. My advice to the kids is community engagement doesn't look one way. There's no standard to it, and I think from personal experience, I think a big deal of it was my heart. Like I've been in the community. I've lived in my community for a very long time, and I've worked with young women for a very long time, and that just all came naturally. Like these young women, created something in my heart, and everything that I've done in the community, which I don't feel like is much, has been attributed to what I feel in my heart. And I feel like when these kids participate, or it will come naturally. Don't force yourself, to participate in these things. These things should come naturally. And despite the fact that I ran for school board, I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. And just a side story, I presented diplomas, my very first graduation in the Salt Lake City School District just last week. And it was a real out of body experience for me, because seeing all of those kids from the community, it just kind of opened my eyes to, make me realize this is why I'm part of the school board, is to see these faces so that they could see something that they're familiar with, participate in something like this, and make them want to aspire or do something like that, to give back. And so if there's anything, I feel just follow your heart, because Polynesian Pasifika kids, that's a natural thing, is they have heart, and their heart is always 100% right. And so yeah, that's all I would recommend or suggest is, just let it come natural. Don't force yourself, because not, like Saolo said, there's no certain way to lead. But just do you.
Thank you. Melesina, would you like to add anything?
Wow, what can I add to that? Thank you, ladies. I appreciate the wisdom. I think the only thing that I can add, because I think Jenny and Saolo have said anything, is as a saying that I came across a few years ago, and I think it's by Epelu Hauofa, one of our Pacific Island scholars. And he stated something that I know it doesn't sound, but it sounded epic to me at that point and space at that moment of my life. And he said the most dangerous thing that you can allow someone else to do is let them think for you. And I think that's what Jen and Saolo has, just be yourself. You know, even though there's so many noises around you that you might think that what you are is not enough, or maybe somebody else's idea is better than yours, but just like they said, be you. And that is such a interesting, because when you're being you and you organize your schedule just to be you, whether it be 30 minutes of your time out of your day, but there's a power in organizing you and concentrating on that you and what you like, what your interests, what your strength. Even if it's 30 minutes a day, organize yourself in where you can devote that 30 minutes to yourself, and then just pursue that every day. And in 5 years, you'll realize that you're an expert at something because you've spent that 30 minutes just being you, just whatever your interest is. And so that's what I want to add to that. So thank you.
Thank you. I think we're going to shift and bring the scholars into the panel, and they'll be able to ask some questions from you all. In the interim, I'm just going to kind of repeat some of the wisdom that you have given us, which is Saolo and Jen and Melesina all pointed out that all of this stuff is natural. And I used to be a Gates Millennium Reader, the scholarship. And oftentimes we had to train the readers that, with Pacific Islanders, our leadership, they may not say that they were the president of the school board or the school, and maybe they were, but oftentimes they were taking leadership roles like taking care of their brothers and sisters, or helping their parents who are working multiple jobs. That is a form of leadership in itself. And so sometimes we don't even recognize our leadership abilities or experience because we're taught that they have to look a certain way. But oftentimes we actually carry a lot of value and wisdom within ourselves and our families and our communities because we have taught to be that, very community oriented. And I would say the same thing within research and academia, right? What we were talking about yesterday in terms of, how to engage with research. And it should be community driven and community centered, because a lot of times, oftentimes in academia, they may not go to the community and ask the community what they need, right? What type of research does the community need? But some of the best research that comes out is community driven, because it's actually what the community wants and what the community needs. I mean, that seems like common sense, but within academia, you'll learn very quickly that some of these people don't have very basic common sense. So we have the wisdom. So don't ever second guess yourself, even though we're in a place that we're constantly being told to do it a certain way. So I would like to open it up to the scholars to ask our brilliant panelists some questions. No shame.
Hi, this is Sanjay Little, and I'm gonna be starting school at Solid Community College for the first time, and it's been really cool to hear the experiences of everybody being involved in the community, even during pursuing education, because I didn't really think of that as something you could do together, and if you did, I thought it would be really difficult and hard to manage, but it's been great experience to hear everybody and how they're able to blend those two aspects of their lives. But I just wanted to ask, because personally I think I'm still kind of searching for the best way to serve the community. Maybe in your experience, what aspect of community service do you feel there could be a stronger presence of Pacific Islanders or more involvement if any. And so that'd just be my question. Is there any certain aspect that you feel is lacking a little bit?
I think I understand your question, so I'm gonna go ahead and you can interrupt me and tell me if like that I'm not answering your question. But I think you're asking, are there any disciplines where Pacific Islanders are not represented? Is that your question? Like which academic discipline or a different area?
Yeah, or yeah, that and maybe just different areas, because I know there's a lot, like there's healthcare, and then there's like educational aspect. There's like, they were talking about coaching like the teams and working with youth. So is there any certain aspect that you would say like you haven't seen a lot of Pacific Islander presence that you would like to, if that makes sense? Sorry.
Yeah, no, the first one that comes to mind is definitely like STEM. Those are, I think, disciplines where there isn't a whole lot of Pacific Islander representation, but I would much rather talk about how, for me at least, doing community work helped expose me to different disciplines that maybe I wouldn't have been exposed to before, like health, right? There are a lot of initiatives aimed at increasing awareness and knowledge of different health issues that are pretty common across Pacific Islander communities. And so I think that through community work, you'll be exposed to a lot of different disciplines that maybe you never considered that you would be interested in. I did not play softball, like not at all. And somehow I was part of starting a girls softball team. And so I worked with a lot of parents and families and young girls. And I don't think I would have ever like sought out those type of opportunities. And so maybe starting with what you are interested in and getting involved in smaller ways. And then, as you continue to deepen your engagement with community, that you'll find that you'll be exposed to other things, and that may help you in your education journey as well. If you find that actually this is really interesting and maybe I can do this for a living, and that may alter kind of your journey or your path in higher ed. But start somewhere and then you'll be surprised where it takes you.
Can I just share? I'm not sure where we lack or where you could, offer your services, but I want to just add on to what Saolo said. What you're good at or what comes naturally to you, eventually doors will open. So a lot of my, I guess, information is just from experience. I started just last year. I convinced a brother of mine to come out here, and we started in the Tongan community, what is called Yakte, right? But I graduated with a business administration degree, and I thought, I could run this a certain way because I have all of this information from from school, like how a business is supposed to run. So, I see a lot of our fellow brethren and peoples running this, whatever it is, concrete landscaping a certain kind of way just to provide income. And, going to school, that wasn't what we were taught. When you run a business, you run it for profit. Anyways, fast forward, it's been over a year now, and I could count on both of my hands so many small contractors how to start up a business, and how I went through it, how to get your license, because believe it or not, a lot of people in our community were afraid of that. they were afraid of the licensing part. They were afraid of filling out applications. And that I feel like, going back to what I was saying, something that just comes naturally. I wasn't meant to do this, but you know, I put two and two together. Me and my brother hopped into this, and we've been running it. But I've realized that after running this business, how much it has helped the community, my fellow friends, you know, classmates. I've convinced them that how easy this is to get into the license, get into programs, you know, that the government is offering for small contractors that we are and stuff like that. But so I'm just saying, like, whatever you're doing, I feel like the doors will open for you to give opportunity to serve. You know, I just wanted to share that.
Melesina, would you like to add anything?
You know, I think they've said everything. As a teacher, I think what I just add one little thing that I want to add to it. It is really important that you know what your likes are, what your interests are, because that's going to be the driving motivation within you. And don't ever allow others to tell you that what you feel or what you're interested in is no significance, because it is significant, because it is what you are. And it's amazing how it's a God-given gift to follow your instinct. And I know in some societies that we've lived in as Pacific Islanders, we've been told that your instinct is of the devil, or is of this, or it's of that. But you know, that's a God-given thing. So trust that. And that's all I want to add to Saolo and Jenny's. And the experiences will come as you trust that instinct to follow. And, you know, follow with truthfulness, and you'll get where you need to go.
I wanted to add to that too. I was just thinking when Melesina was talking, and Jenny and Saolo, of like, remember Sanjay, when we talked about the very first day to be led. And the other thing that I shared too from Dr. Manolani Myers is she always says to serve where you are needed. And oftentimes all of them just showed specific examples of they're just being led, and they just keep going, even though you're like, I have no idea. And sometimes when you're younger, everybody seems like they got it together and they know where they're going. No, they don't know where they're going. Nobody knows where they're going. They play off really well. And I even used to think like, oh, my parents knew how to parent and they understood all these things. But in reality, now I think about it, we were the same age when they had me, and I'm like, they did not know. I have no idea. I'm just like going day to day, trying to do my best. And so even with getting involved, maybe the only thing you have is like, I know I want to do something that serves the community. That's what you started out with. And I know I want to do something in business. And so then you just jump. You jump and you try, and you go where you're needed. And then I, just like Jenny and all of everyone said, that the doors will open. And it's really crazy. To be honest, I did go to school and all these things, but I think about my path and how almost all the doors were open, not because I had any like big connections. It was because I had connections to my own community, and I just kept working in different spaces. And then people opened opportunities for me professionally because I just was able to create relationships. So I think that that's one of the things that I hope all of you leave with, that maybe you won't have everything tied up in a perfect bow when you leave today on Friday, our week-long institute, but maybe it's just your purpose that you're understanding, and that's the direction you're gonna go into. So
just to add, scholars, feel free to write your questions in the chat or the Q&A. But just to add to, what Moana and Melesina had pointed out, it's like trusting your na'au, right, in Hawaiian, trust your gut, trust your instincts. And a lot of times we're kind of indoctrinated to not trust those instincts in like the Western schooling. But oftentimes those instincts, the mind, body, and spirit are connected, right? And then you'll feel when something is off. And this also, ties into community work, like what Melesina was saying and what Jenny had said in terms of it's natural, right? If it's something that you're passionate about, knowing that you want to be of service, right? It will open doors. Doors will open because you're doing what you're passionate about. You're doing it graciously. You're doing something that you love to do. And oftentimes, because we probably will be the few in our fields, it's all about also creating a pathway and looking back, right? And looking back and trying to create more pathways, more opportunities for our community to highlight their brilliance. Because oftentimes, we're raised to be very humble people. If you're not humble, then you're not really acting culturally appropriate. And in Western standards of leadership, you have to highlight yourself in a certain way. But always within our community, we know if you've done the work, right? If you've been there, if you've been in the trenches, if you're okay with serving food, if you're okay with washing dishes. No, I think, who was it? Dr. Nia Aitoto. She said, there is no like try out for washing dishes when she presented yesterday. She's like, there is no, you just go and you wash dishes, right? you go where you're needed. And that's what is, the beautiful thing about our community. We're taught to be humble, right? We're taught to always know that we have more to learn and that our learning is never done. Even if I have a PhD, I think there's so many more people who may not have a PhD. They're so much more smarter than I am, right? So it's having that humility in moving forward and getting to know folks and finding mentors in all the capacities, not only academic, but also in the community, right? Like they may not have a PhD, but they have such wonderful experiences in the community to kind of guide you and to navigate you into maybe you can have a professional career opportunity based on some of the experiences that you're getting. So just summarizing the brilliance that you all have already given us, is there any other scholars who would like to ask some questions? Because, Moana and I can talk story all day. So.
Sorry, my name is Freddie Lafo. So, my question is, how do you guys find the balance with everything that you guys have right now, with your families and everything, and community, like advocacy and the work that you guys do nowadays? And the second part is like, what made you passionate about towards your community service to lead you where you're at now? Sorry.
Those are really good questions, Freddie. Moana, is that okay if I? So what I remember about your question is, what makes you passionate about what you do? And the thing is, I've been in the Polynesian community for 30 some years. And every time I go to a professional gathering, there's always the Polynesians. And I'm part of that community because my husband and my extended family, which I love, are part of that. But then it dawned on me one day that that's Polynesian Pacific Islander are not one and the same. It's part of each other, but it's not one of the same. And I'm Micronesian and I should speak out. And as shy as I am, I just introduced myself. I'm like, you know what? My name is Melesina Folau, and I'm proud to carry the Folau name because, they're a great family, but I'm Micronesian, and this is what Micronesian means. And that's how it all started. Margarita was in the audience and she thought that was brilliant. And I'm like, what the heck are you talking about, girl? But she said, you know what? She's been to all these gatherings where she's the only brown person. And for me to stand up and just introduce myself, and that's what it takes for you to know something is off and say something about it. I mean, it's no big deal, but it was a big deal to those that were listening because I spoke myself, nobody else's space but my space. And it shows passion, not because I wanted to be loud and clear and, scream to the world like it's, 3 regions in the Pacific. I didn't say that. I just say that I am what I am and, this is what it is. And so it came out as passionate. And then that's when people start being curious, like, tell us more about it. I'm like, yeah, bring it on. I can tell you anything from Palau to Nauru, the Kiribati, and this is our region. And yes, we are Polynesians. Nuku'oro, which is right in the middle of Pohnpei, is Polynesian ancestry because we were one at one time, all one. And people don't know those histories. And so when people start, listening and like, really, why are Polynesians right in the middle of Micronesia? And not because at one time we were all one. We're one ocean, and we still are. But this is what it is. The fact that people don't know those realities make us separate people. Like, you guys are this part and we're this part and we're in this triangle and all this and all that. There's history there, that there's bits of evidences, laying out with everything. And with me being Melanesian, I found out that the Melanesian people that I am part of actually have Tongan blood in them. And I'm like, where did I get my Tongan blood from? And so, yeah, I tease my husband that, you Tongans were bullies because that's why you guys are everywhere in the Pacific. But that's a reality that we were one time one because, that's what it is. And it's not that I show passion, but it's just telling others what you believe in and what you are. You don't have to be anybody else but yourself. And it comes out as passion because you'll find out that there's spaces that you're the only person there. And, don't shy away from telling them, hey, I am Tongan. And that's what it is. There's no ifs and buts about it. And when you speak with that conviction, it shows as passion. And so that's what my take is on that. As far as how I get into this, service, it's just things are missing. You'll notice that things are missing from the community that you're in that you should be part of. And it's just saying, hey, we're part of the community, but we're not even having a say in this. And people are kind enough, especially our Pacific Islander community, they have the Aloha or the Ofa, that they want to be inclusive. And you can look around and they go, hey, these are brothers and sisters, come on in. And the next thing you know, you're in another space, and then another space and another space, and you're just being yourself, showing people that, what, and then sharing that history, because we have such a history that even our younger generations don't know of, because we're so, like Kalani have said, we've been taught one way and our realities are different. And all we have to do is share that. Like, Micronesians are full of Polynesians too. And, just because some European communities came in and define us as such, that's their definition. We still have our definition, and it's okay to share that. And so that's my take on your question. I hope that answers your question, Freddie.
Can I add to that too? I think the one part of the question that Freddie that stood out to me was you asked how do we balance serving in the community and our lives and all of that stuff. And a wise man once said, he said, a lot of people look at balance as a scale, and one you're on one side and something's on the other, and it has its balance. But he says there's no such thing as balance. He actually portrayed the balance as to these performers. Have you guys ever seen performers spin plates on on these sticks? Like there's multiple plates and they're spinning all these plates at one certain time. And what he says that when one of the plates slow down, you go and spin that plate, right? And then, to keep it going, that's how balance should look like. And that's, for me, like that definitely makes more sense to me because of all of the things that I have going on in my life. I have my children. I have this rugby program. I have, my church functions. I have this business. There's no way for me to balance on a scale like that. Oh, this is a priority and what? It's when one part of your busyness slows down, you go and spin that. You go and spin that plate so that plate could keep on going. It's not, you don't put priority over everything. You keep on spinning the plates when, certain plates start to, you see that that's, not inconsistent with the rest of them, you go focus on that one. And I feel like I've used that kind of mantra with how I've been going about my life with the community service. And I'm not saying that everything that I've done is perfect, because it is so far from perfect. But that's for you to keep going and not be overwhelmed with a lot of the responsibilities and the opportunities that you're given. You just do one thing at a time. I hope that helps out.
I'll add to that. I think I love that visual that Jenny has shared about it not being a scale. And I think when it comes to balance for me, I've learned that sometimes when we get overwhelmed, it's because we compartmentalize things. So I have this box with all my school stuff. I have this box with all my work stuff. And, we, in our minds, separate things and try to make sense of it that way, which makes it really hard to balance, at least for me. And so I started to try to see how things are connected. And so if there are family things that conflict with school things, I've taken family to class. I've taken nieces and nephews to class. And I've done that because my parents were in school while we were young, and they took us to class. And I think that in some ways that was a service to me, because the classroom was a safe space for me. I was never intimidated in a classroom because I've been going to college classes since I was 5 years old. And so, and that continues now when there's community events that conflict with family things. Sometimes we go as a family to community events, or, blending work and community. And so I think when you step back and you think about how things are connected and not separated, it makes it easier to balance because you're able to simplify. Also, I've done homework at every family event, trying to rush and submit papers at funerals and parking lots. That's the beauty of having a hotspot. You can, have an office anywhere. And so simplify your life by trying to see how things are connected, not separate. And I think when you ask, this is a great question, Freddie. I think when you ask about passion, I think I'm passionate about community work because it grounds me. There's so many things as a professional or as a university staff member that you could get lost in budget meetings or writing grant proposals, the things that are not so exciting, about being in a professional setting. And I think the community work that I do outside or inside, of work, the community work that I do grounds me so that if I'm in a budget meeting or if we're writing a grant, I remember the purpose. And I can draw on those relationships with community members or community leaders to continue moving forward or to give purpose to the work that I am doing. And so I think that you'll find that as a student, there are going to be classes that you're not going to want to take that are not fun for you. But if you put that into context of why am I even here? What am I working towards, right? Or what in the community work that I've been doing, how does this relate? And I think it's going to get you through that math class. It's going to get you through that writing class because it's going to help to push you forward. And then you'll find passion in other areas that really strengthen and balance that. So this is a great question. This is such a great group.
Thank you, Saolo. anyone of the scholars have a final question? I just wanted to, with that, just wanted to thank all of you for joining us today, and for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us this morning. I think all of you are representative of what I see as that's how you gained your leadership, is through service. The proverb we have for today. And the other part that I wanted to just emphasize too is like, not only do you guys do service, but these three folks are like just solid, stalwart, like human beings. And I think that shows, yes, they're part of the community, do community work, also are in the academic field. But at the end of the day, I am grateful that I know all of you, and you are people who have integrity and actually work from that space that you say of purpose, wherever that may be. So for those who are listening on our scholars is, I think too, having accolades, being a leader is all cool, but also being just a really good human being and being able to let your own light shine wherever you go in whatever field you do choose. So thank you all for joining us this morning and for all of that, and look forward to seeing you in person in all of your various places. And hopefully next year we'll make it out to PHA, UNP, and then Jenny can take us around at the district and we actually can take the scholars to see these spaces. Everyone has provided us their information, contact information. So they all have opportunities to serve within their own organizations. You all can just reach out personally if you're interested, and they can, if you know a little bit about rugby and want to coach, Jenny got you. Jenny always needs help. And UNP, we always need interns, and I know PHA needs paraprofessionals all the time. So the opportunities are there, and you all just made probably like 20 new connections throughout this week. So see these folks as resources as well. Thank you. Cal, you have anything to say?
Juana, you just summed it up beautifully. Thank you so much, Jenny, Saolo, Melesina. It's a pleasure to have you with us this morning. Thank you for making the time, and thank you for all that you do for our community at large. Mahalo nui.
And come tonight if you all are free at Lost Eden in the Gateway. We sent you invitations, but if you didn't get it, just text me. We'll see you tonight if you all can come and meet up. Bye, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Scholars, just stay on, please.